Prominent celebrities and others are calling for the United States to engage in another conflict halfway around the world. Once again, it's in a place you likely have never heard of, or in the least you could not point to on a map. The conflict that is brewing its way into an all-out war is between former Soviet nations, Armenia and Azerbaijan, two countries that are sandwiched between Turkey and the Caspian Sea, Russia to the north, along with Georgia, and Iran to the south. Now, this conflict started 100 years ago. And at this point, the United States is not involved. In fact, the United States is noticeably absent, according to reports, but many are calling for the United States to get involved. So what I'm going to do for you, hopefully as succinctly as possible, but this is a complicated conflict because there's so many different players involved. I'm going to lay out exactly what the conflict is, some of the history behind the conflict, and the major players and where they fall in this conflict. We've got Turkey, Russia, Israel, Iran, China. We've got Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Europe, where each one falls and where the United States likely is to fall if the United States is to get involved, which the United States at this point is not. And I firmly believe we should keep it that way. The United States should remain out of this neutral, call for a ceasefire, be diplomatic, but beyond that, we should not be involved. However, we have many Americans that are calling for the United States to get involved or for the United States to halt all aid to Azerbaijan. And we're going to get into all of that. So a brief history of the conflicts that you can kind of understand. Now, that would be its own hour-long segment in and of itself. But essentially, every major conflict that's going on around the world when it comes to a land dispute, which that's what this is a land dispute. These two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, are fighting over a parcel of land. All land disputes that are going on around the world right now typically can be traced back to some world power that arbitrarily drew lines on a map and said, you folks belong here and you guys are here and, that's it. And then, wiping my hands clean and I'm leaving. And without consulting the people that actually live on that land. Now, in the past, it's been England. England was the one who pretty much did all of that in the Middle East and in Africa and created a lot of problems. But this time around, it was actually Stalin. It was Russia who created these land borders, and it's created this hostility that has gone on for about a little over 100 years now. So back in the day, Stalin decides to draw up the map and he says, okay, Armenia over here, Azerbaijan over here. And then everybody says, yeah, but what about this area? It's called Nagorno-Karabakh. And it is inside of the land borders that Stalin drew for Azerbaijan. It's firmly inside of Azerbaijan. But the problem with it is that it is populated with mostly Armenians. So these Armenian people are sort of in this land island inside of Azerbaijan, and they don't want to be there. So the dispute is that this land is legally and internationally recognized as Azerbaijan's land. However, the people that live on it are ethnically Armenian, and they are tied culturally and linguistically and in every other way to the Armenian people. They want to be their own independent nation. So Armenia often helps fight with them to gain them independence or to gain Armenian control over this region. And Azerbaijan attempts to hold them off and to continue their claim on this land that is legally and internationally recognized as theirs. Now, for the last 30 years or so, maybe even longer, again, I don't want to get into the whole history lesson on this, but right now, this land parcel inside of Azerbaijan is controlled by Armenian forces. And there's been a lot of fighting in the past, and there's been times when the fighting has, sort of bubbled up to the surface and things have happened. But for the most part, it has just been under this Armenian control, and Azerbaijan's had a big problem with it for a long time. Now, there was a peace deal that was attempted to be brokered in 2006 to 2009 that was brokered between the United States, Russia, and France in helping these two nations come to some sort of a deal. And ultimately, even though this peace deal was made and everybody agreed to it, nothing happened with it. And that was largely because Armenia decided not to actually follow through with the deal, and they needed to be the ones to make the first move. The ball was in their court, and Armenia decided to drop the ball. They said, "Nah, forget it. We don't want to do it." That deal was that Armenia would have to relinquish some control over some of the land that they've gained control over, and Armenia has decided that they don't want to do it. So fast forward to today, and the world is in a pandemic, and everybody's looking in the other directions, and Azerbaijan says this is a good time. Hey, this is a good time to go and try to take that land back. So Azerbaijan, again, I don't want to make this too long. So there have been disputes as to who started it. There's disputes as to how much fighting and where this and civilians and who's being targeted and whatnot. Okay, there's always going to be disputes about all of that and who started it and whatever's going on. So, but what we know is this land is internationally and legally recognized as Azerbaijan's, and they're now fighting for it back. Now, where this has drawn in foreign countries and discussions about the United States potentially getting involved is the fact that a NATO ally has reportedly become involved in the conflict, and that is Turkey. Turkey is a NATO ally, and apparently, according to reports, allegedly, they are backing Azerbaijan and supplying them with troops that they're shipping in from Syria and weapons and training and amongst other things, and that they're actively engaging in the battle against Armenia for this land parcel that's inside of Azerbaijan. Turkey denies it. Turkey says, we deny it, we're not doing it, but we're not totally against it. And Turkey has made it very, very clear that they are on the side of Azerbaijan. There is a long-standing, bloody battle that is ensued between Turkey against Turkey and Armenia, and Turkey has committed acts of genocide against the Armenian people. Turkey has been very hostile towards Armenia, and mainly it's because Armenia's always been very close with Russia, and Turkey and Russia had a lot of, they were at war at times, the Ottomans and the Russians, and so the Armenians have this long-standing tie and alliance with Russia that has been something that Turkey's had a big beef with, and their relationship is icy, very, very icy, beyond icy. It's bad. So Turkey is being accused of supporting Azerbaijan. They're not agreeing to that, but they're also saying, yeah, but we would if we have to. So Turkey is saying, look, if this conflict goes deeper into Azerbaijan, we will go and we will support Azerbaijan, absolutely. Now, Russia is another big power player in this whole thing, and Russia is an Armenian ally, as I mentioned. However, they're not coming to the rescue at this time, and this has been very much, the Armenians are very upset about this. They really want Russia to get more involved, but Russia's pretty much refusing to. They're calling for a ceasefire. They're saying, you two need to work it out, but they are an Armenian ally, but they're not supporting Armenia as much as Armenia would like, especially since Armenia is saying, yeah, but Turkey's helping them, so you should come help us. And Russia's saying, we really don't want to, for a couple of reasons. First, when we did the peace deal back in 2006 to 2009, you guys basically waved it off. So, you know what? If you want that land, you're going to have to defend it now on your own, because we tried to help you and you didn't want to, you basically brushed off what we attempted to do. So Russia has grown a bit exhausted with Armenia in regards to this conflict. Secondly, Russia doesn't really want to engage in a war with Turkey or Israel, for that matter. Israel, which we'll get into, is also backing Azerbaijan, and Russia really doesn't want to end up in a proxy war. Russia is trying to solve other wars and get out of other wars and tamp down civil wars like in Syria. They don't really want to engage in another one. So Russia is very hesitant to get involved, but they have said to Armenia, listen, if the conflict actually goes into your actual legal land, we will be there to protect you. That is the deal. Russia has a military base in Armenia. They have a close relationship with Armenia, and they say if this conflict goes beyond the Azerbaijan borders and goes into Armenia, then we will be there to help you out. So if Turkey tries to invade Armenia, or if Azerbaijan comes into Armenia and tries to take over, Russia says we'll be there. But at this point, that hasn't happened, to make that clear. Now, Israel. Israel is also a very close ally with Azerbaijan, and they're being accused of supplying Azerbaijan with weapons and training. And Israel is not really confirming it. I don't think they're really denying it either. So they have a more geopolitical strategic reason for backing Azerbaijan. When you look at the map, Azerbaijan is right there next to Iran, and we all know that Israel's number one priority is to focus itself on Iran. They are 100% focused on Iran and anything they can do to stop Iran's influence, and so they absolutely are good friends with Azerbaijan because it is strategic for them to be so. Not to mention, Azerbaijan, and compared to Armenia, has all the resources. Azerbaijan has the oil, Azerbaijan has the natural gas, and many nations get those resources from Azerbaijan. And so they have a reason for their own national security to support and back Azerbaijan. But Israel, even more so. Not only do they receive 40% of its oil from Azerbaijan, but again, Azerbaijan is right there on that Iranian border, and Israel's got hawk eyes on Iran. So they do some military operations out of Azerbaijan. They like to keep Iran surrounded. As you know, we've been surrounding Iran with Afghanistan and Iraq and Azerbaijan. So, interestingly, Israel and Turkey, who are not friends, mostly because Turkey supports the Palestinians. Erdogan has said that he wants to raise up an Islamic military against Israel in order to help defend the Palestinians. So Israel and Turkey are not friends at all. They're on opposing sides. However, when it comes to this particular conflict, they are finding themselves on the same side. They support Azerbaijan because both of them would like to limit Iranian influence or Russian influence, or they've got their own geopolitical reasons. They're different, but very much somewhat the same. So moving on to Iran. Now, why is Iran such a problem with Azerbaijan? Because it's odd that they would be at odds with one another. Iranians and Azerbaijans and Azeri people are pretty much the same, actually. In Iran, 1/5 of their population has Azeri of Azeri ethnic origin. So they share the same religion. They're both Shia Muslims. They share the same history. They share the same ethnic origin. They're basically siblings, Iran and Azerbaijan. But they're not really friends. And the reason is they don't trust each other for different reasons. Iran, as you know, is a theocracy. Besides the Vatican, Iran is the only actual real theocracy in the world where religion runs the country. Azerbaijan, though they are a majority Shia Muslim country, are extremely secular. In fact, they are the most secular of the Islamic world. They're the most secular nation of the Islamic world. So Azerbaijan doesn't trust Iran because they don't want Iranian influence. The people are so similar in culture and ethnicity and in religion that the Azeri people, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure that the Azerbaijan people are Azeri. I would want to say Azerbaijani, but that's not true. I don't think that's accurate. So the Azeri people are leery of Iranian influence. They do not want their country to fall to this theocracy type of government. So they really want to limit and push back on any Iranian influence. They don't trust them. On the flip side, Iran doesn't trust the Azeri people because they believe, since they have such a huge population of people from Azerbaijan or from that region historically that are inside of Iran, they are afraid of an uprising, of sort of an Azeri uprising, a separatist movement of folks that want to join Azerbaijan and leave the Iranian theocracy. So Iran is suspicious of Azerbaijan, especially since they're friends with Israel. They think that they're bad actors, potentially trying to disrupt Iran and the theocracy. And so those two are at odds with one another. They don't really trust each other, even though they're pretty much siblings. And that's why Israel really likes Azerbaijan, because they're like, hey, we could be friends. You're real secular, and those guys aren't, and we don't like those guys, and you shouldn't trust them because they're going to try to make you into them. And, so there's a lot of this information campaign going around between the two countries of they're trying to get us. So they don't trust one another. Saudi Arabia has largely stayed out of this as well. They're calling for a ceasefire. Most everybody's staying out of it, saying they're calling for a ceasefire, even if they side with one country more than the other. Saudi Arabia also sides more with Azerbaijan because of the same reasons as Israel. They want to keep Iran in check. However, Saudi Arabia has remained neutral in this, saying we should not be involved. They're just saying, listen, stop the fighting, stop the fighting. Europe is also saying stop the fighting. They're calling for Azerbaijan to back down and for Turkey to back down. And China's another interesting power player in this one. They're trying to stay neutral on this. They historically have been more vocal in favor of Azerbaijan because they look at it as, if they were not supportive of Azerbaijan, they would be hypocrites, because China has Taiwan, the same sort of issue with Taiwan, where they dispute over who Taiwan belongs to. China believes Taiwan is theirs. That's why they have the one China policy. So China says, listen, this region, this Nagorno-Karabakh region is for Azerbaijan, just like Taiwan is ours. So we support Azerbaijan in their sovereignty. So China has historically been more on the side of Azerbaijan. However, lately they're trying to make some inroads with Armenia and their Belt and Road Initiative, and so they're taking a more obvious neutral tone to the conflict, calling for both sides to stop the fighting. Now, China recently, however, have made a big deal with Azerbaijan in their Belt and Road Initiative. Azerbaijan has signed on as a big player in their Belt and Road. Now, China would like to add Armenia to the list, and they have been investing in Armenia, but they are partnered with Azerbaijan as of this year. And they receive a lot of resources from Azerbaijan, and they've got a lot of reasons to keep that area of the world stable. Now, this leads us to the question of the United States and whether or not the United States should get involved, and if the United States did get involved, which side would the United States take? So it's an interesting road to go down that will go down here really quickly. First of all, no, the United States should not get involved. We do not need to be involved in this conflict. It is 7,000 miles away. We don't have any land borders with these nations, and we really need to let them battle it out on their own. Whatever may be, may be. Now, if Turkey wants to, what we're hearing from the media, the calls for getting involved involve cries of Ottoman Empire expansionist ideas from Turkey, that Erdogan wants to create a world power under the Ottoman Empire. He's trying to create the Ottoman Empire again. So, oh no, we must stop him. We must stop him. No, we don't need to stop him. The same way we really didn't need to go and stop USSR influence and create wars all around the world, including Vietnam and Korea and Afghanistan. It was a disaster to try to stop USSR expansion in that way. We don't need to go down that narrative and say, yeah, but Turkey, for one, Turkey's a NATO ally, so we're not going to be trying to demonize them anytime soon, although definitely the calls for demonizing them have been happening in the media. Pay attention to that. Largely, I think that is because Turkey is 1 foot out the door with NATO. And so as soon as they turn their back on NATO, you better believe we're going to see a huge demonizing campaign against Turkey. Now, maybe Turkey does have this big Ottoman Empire expansionist idea. What does it matter to us? Really, it shouldn't. If they decide that they want to be the big world power over there, because over there in the Middle East, you've got 4 nations vying for major control. They want to be the United States of the Middle East, right? You've got Iran, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Israel, and you have Turkey. And they're all vying for being the big power in the region. Let them. I don't think we need to get involved in that. Whoever's the last one standing is the last one standing, I suppose. And we need to stay out of it. We cannot control who's in control. So going down that road of, yeah, but Erdogan's got this Ottoman Empire expansionist idea, I don't care. We need to stay out of it. And the other narrative we're hearing a lot of is, well, this is another attempt at Turkey to commit acts of genocide against the Armenian people. Now, Turkey has a history of, there is the genocide, the Armenian genocide that Turkey does not recognize, neither does Israel, interestingly. But nonetheless, until we see actual evidence of that happening, I don't think we need to be getting ourselves involved. I'm not fully against a war or going and protecting folks if that really needs to happen. If it's obvious that the evidence is there, that an atrocious act is being committed, then I do think we could get ourselves involved. But I'm very hesitant to believe all the narratives that we time and time again have marched us into more conflicts, and it's always humanitarian. We must help, but this is happening against these people. We must. There's a genocide, and genocide is the buzzword. They all say genocide in China with the Uyghurs, genocide now in Armenia, even though this land dispute is not in Armenia, it's in Azerbaijan, and it's land that is legally and internationally recognized as Azerbaijan's. So they're fighting there. And they're not in Armenia. They're not marching in. Turkey's not marching into Armenia. Russia has made that clear that that is a line in the sand for them, a red line. So the calls, we have to be very careful about the narratives that come out that try to get us into engaging in wars. Now, others have called for us to stop. They say, well, okay, maybe we don't want to get involved, but we shouldn't be supporting Azerbaijan. And we send them quite a bit of military aid. Well, that is true. We do send Azerbaijan quite a bit of military aid. In fact, we don't really give any military aid to Armenia. We do give a good amount of military aid to Azerbaijan. However, we give way more humanitarian aid to Armenia than we do to Azerbaijan. But there's a caveat on the military aid we give to Azerbaijan. So there have been some government officials calling for us to stop our aid, our military aid to Azerbaijan because of this conflict. However, that's not likely going to happen because the military aid that we give to Azerbaijan is specifically naval, because they have that Caspian Sea, and we're trying to keep Iran in check and Russia in check. So we're not likely to stop naval military aid to Azerbaijan, especially when Armenia has a land border with Azerbaijan. So the naval military assistance we give to Azerbaijan is not being used against Armenia. And we have another provision in our military aid to Azerbaijan. It specifically says it cannot be used for any hostilities towards Armenia. So it's not likely we're backing down from that aid. When you look at the map, and geopolitically, Azerbaijan is strategically located right next to Iran, and we're trying to keep Iran surrounded. We're also not likely going to end up backing Armenia when Armenia is sided with Russia. So they're a Russian ally, so that means we would suddenly find ourselves on the side of Russia against Turkey, a NATO ally, and Israel, a major U.S. ally. We would suddenly find ourselves with Russia and Iran, which supports Armenia more than Azerbaijan. So that's not likely going to happen in this conflict. I don't see us suddenly siding with Russia and Iran with helping Armenia. I don't see us going in that direction. And certainly during the Trump administration, I don't see us doing anything. I see us remaining neutral and staying out of it. And you can see why the U.S. would want to stay out of this, considering the players that are involved in this conflict, the larger players of Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Israel, who's already involved. You could see why we would be staying out of it. Now, the only way we would maybe back Armenia, there's two reasons why we might back Armenia. One is we have a large Armenian population here in the United States that would be calling for support for the Armenian people in Armenia, or actually technically in Azerbaijan, if we're going to be technical. So there's that. And also the fact that China has this big Belt and Road deal with Azerbaijan, and Trump has been very much obsessed with stopping China and limiting Chinese expansion. That would be a possibility that the United States would support Armenia in order to help limit Chinese expansion in Azerbaijan. So there's a possibility there. Now, if Joe Biden becomes president, I do not see him caring as much about China as Trump does. So you'd be limited to us only going to bat for Armenia if and only if Joe Biden feels like the Armenian people are voting for him. So it'd be similar to Cuba and the Republicans' viewpoint on Cuba. It's, well, okay, we're going to be against this country. We're going to be against Azerbaijan because my voting base is Armenian and I got to keep them happy. I don't know how well that's going to work, because we all know Kim Kardashian and Kanye were a bit more Trump supporters than they were Joe Biden supporters, it seems like. I don't know. Certainly Kanye was, wearing that red MAGA hat. So, unfortunately, for those of you who are Armenian and you're watching this and you're hoping that I would advocate for us to get involved for Armenia. I'm not going to advocate for us to get involved in any conflict that doesn't directly affect the United States. And if the Armenian people want this parcel of land, they're going to have to fight for it because they're going to have to defend it. And I just don't see the United States getting involved for the geopolitical reasons of where Azerbaijan is located. It's a strategic spot for us against Iran, and I don't see us partnering with Russia anytime soon. So that is the conflict in a nutshell. I don't think we're going to get involved. We shouldn't get involved. And, you know, it is different on military aid. I know some people want to point out, well, but I'm against the military aid that we send to Israel. That is different. My tax dollars are specifically going to Israel, and Israel's using those tax dollars that I'm sending them to afflict on the Palestinians on land that we internationally and legally recognize as Palestinian land. So they're trying to take land that the international community recognizes as Palestine. So in this regard, it's the same thing. The Armenians are trying to take land that is internationally recognized as Azerbaijan land, even though that, you know, we could have a discussion on whether or not it should be, but it is at this point. And so, you know, if they want to try to hold on to it, they're going to have to fight for it. I believe that. I do not believe the United States needs to get involved militarily, for example, to help the Palestinians. But at the same time, I don't think the United States should be getting involved against the Palestinians, which is what we're doing. I call for us to get out of that conflict 100%. And everybody's got to fight their own battles. If you want the land, you're going to have to defend it, because you're going to have to defend it for generations to come. So we cannot be there to guard it for you. So that is why I believe, look, if people want land, if they want to keep their land, or if they want to take land, they're going to have to do it themselves. And Godspeed, you know, whoever's the strongest, I suppose, will be the last one standing. And that's how it is in all conflicts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was long and complex, but there's a lot of players involved in this. And I wanted to fully kind of paint the picture of what is going on over there and the geopolitical strategic reasons as to why most of the countries that are on the list are supporting Azerbaijan, and why Armenia isn't getting much support except from Russia, and even that, it's very limited. And we, the United States, I just can't say it enough, we need to stay out of it. And I don't care what Erdogan wants to do in the world. I don't care about Ottoman Empire expansion. We just got to stay out of it. For once, we have to stay out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, the links are down below. Thank you again.